Huge month for this video sponsor, GeForce Now, powered by Cloud GG. They just upgraded their hardware and now you can play games in the cloud utilizing RTX 4080 GPUs. That means up to 4K resolution, maxing out your settings, ray tracing enabled, and ultra-wide support. Best of all, this new Ultimate tier replaces the previous Ultra tier at no extra cost. Cloud GG literally just took their best tier and made it even better without charging an extra cent. Click the link below to try it for free or stick around to the end of the video to learn more.
Alrighty. I played the new Star Wars Outlaws. I spent about nearly an hour playing it, actually. The footage that you're seeing here is not my own footage. It's provided B-roll, but I will say that it is actually very emblematic of my experience. Yeah, what you see here is basically what I saw when I played. I played on PC using a controller. The PC was running a 4080. RTX 4080. It was running at 4K resolution and it had DLSS enabled. It was set to balanced and the settings were all on high and it was running beautifully actually, like really didn't skip a beat. Like the whole time I was playing. It was locked at 60 FPS, but it really did run like a dream. And that definitely gives me a lot of hope because, you know, obviously Ubisoft launches can often come in a little hot, as they say. This one seems to be quite polished based upon just this preview slice, obviously. Things could be very different in the final product, but generally speaking, when I see a good preview slice, it generally results in a good final product, right? So that's all the setup out the way. I got to experience 3 different segments that ran for around about sort of 15 to 20 minutes each. And basically they were meant to give me a kind of vertical slice of what it's like to play through different parts of the game. Before I get into like more detailed comments, I will say right off the top that I liked this. I like this quite a bit actually. It's not particularly surprising, except in how lovingly crafted it is, in how well made it is in many of its aspects, in how surprisingly detailed it is in some areas. Like, you walk into for example, I walked into this town sort of area. There's like a scoundrel hub. There's lots of gambling going on and people, you know, the Empire are kind of patrolling the streets, hassling civilians, and people are kind of hawking their wares at a marketplace. It felt incredibly lived in. One of the most sort of lived in Star Wars areas that I think I've ever experienced in a video game. Because yeah, most Star Wars games don't really try to do that. You know, like you're looking at your Star Wars fighter pilot games, or you're looking at your Jedi game, or you're looking at your, you know, Republic Commando or whatever else, right? But this is really about trying to immerse you in what it would be like to just hang out in the Star Wars universe and make your way in that universe. And I actually was kind of feeling those vibes as I was playing through it.
We shouldn't be here. The Ishiga could come at any moment.
I think a really good touch point for this is the Respawn Star Wars games, okay? Now, I think those are fantastic games. Are they innovative? No. Do they really stand out at any specific aspect as, you know, having the best visuals or sound design or storytelling, whatever else? No. But it's really authentic Star Wars that just really hits right. And it's nailed its gameplay fundamentals well enough that you just enjoy going through it. Because as I've said in my reviews for those Star Wars games, we get some pretty shitty Star Wars, you know what I mean? Like from TV shows to movies to whatever else, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're used to getting some pretty shitty Star Wars. So when you get some good Star Wars, you're like, hey, this is nice, you know? And the same way like The Mandalorian hit. And that kind of delivered that scoundrel fantasy. And I got a lot of that same vibe here as well as I was playing through it. I really did. So don't expect anything too surprising. Don't expect like a Game of the Year contender. But I would say, based upon what I've experienced, do expect a well-made, you know, like loving homage to Star Wars that really seems to get it on multiple levels. And that is also really fun to play, right? So in terms of what I played 3 specific segments of the game. They were meant to sort of represent the like kind of vertical slices of what it would be like to play through the entire thing. One of them was focused on like a ruined reactor that I needed to repower. Another one was kind of like a heist where I needed to go in and steal an artifact and deliver it to someone else. And then the third segment was one of the space sim, you know, like flying out in space kind of thing, right? So let's talk about the other aspect, those first two missions first. So walking around the reactor. This was a mission where I was kind of on my own a lot. There wasn't a lot of combat here. This mission was very much focused on traversal. And I was in an old Imperial vessel. It had powered down, and to be able to escape it, I needed to, you know, turn the lights back on. So there's a lot of that whole like Uncharted, you know, jumping onto a wall that's covered in yellow paint, leaping up to a ledge that's also covered in yellow paint, swinging using a grapple across ledges. There's all of that, right? Again, that's something else that the EA Star Wars game was doing a lot of as well. Generally traversing the environment in these action-adventure AAA games, it's pretty standard fare. It's very standard here as well. I'm not gonna come out and say that it's fantastic. It's not. It just gets the job done, but it is fun to do it, you know, and I do get to walk through some really nice looking locations. That's probably a good moment to talk about how good this game looks. Like, this game really does look fantastic, and I don't think the trailers actually, the trailers are doing it justice, I would say. But if you had any doubt that maybe the trailers are overselling it, no, when I was playing through it, I was consistently very impressed at how good it looked. You know, Massive really do know how to make a beautiful looking video game, and they've done it again here with Star Wars. But also, not just like technical visuals, but just how detailed the Star Wars setting is and how much life they've breathed into the visual, the aesthetic of this video game. Like, there's just so much to remark as you're going through it. It definitely looks, again, to compare it to, you know, the Respawn Star Wars games, this definitely looks much more visually intricate in a way that leaps out at you in certain places. And I really enjoyed that about it. So yeah, basically, again though, this traversal challenge thing was fun. It was pretty basic, and that was the end of that demo. The second demo I thought was a lot more interesting, and this was a heist mission where I got to experience a lot more of the game's combat and also kind of like stealth and that sort of thing. So you do have a sidekick with you. He's kind of like a little puppy alien thing, and his main job is kind of like pinging the environment. So you kind of hold up on the D-pad, and then you can see hidden objects, you can see collectibles, you can see, you know, like if there's a door panel nearby that needs power, you can kind of see through the walls and see where its power cables lead to, and you can go and power it on, you know what I mean? So that's cool. There's a lot of that going on in this game as well. There are a lot of powered down wall panels. There are a lot of hackable wall panels where the hacking game is actually quite interesting. It's kind of like a rhythm game. So imagine that, you know, there's this thing going in a circle and it makes it like a certain rhythm, like, and then you need to like press the button at the same time to be able to open it. It's always a different rhythm. I don't know, it was cool.
Let's see here.
There was another one which is kind of like Wordle. To hack computers in this game, you actually play a version of Wordle where you need to like line up these symbols in certain ways. It doesn't really make sense to explain it here, but when you experience it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's definitely Wordle. Yeah, so that making your way through, because you're a scoundrel and you're trying to like break into places that you're not meant to be. So do expect a lot of that there as well. Do expect a lot of sneaking, and the environments that I experienced were very well designed to set that up. Enemies were pretty blind, you know, like you could very easily maneuver around them. That wasn't hard. There's also a whistle to be able to distract them, pull them over to places. But yeah, you can obviously stealth up behind them for instant KOs, or you can just avoid them entirely if you're that way inclined. Or you can just kick the shit out of them, because you do have a melee attack. You have a kick and a punch, and you basically you can brawl on if you like. And that will still alert all the guards when you start punching on, but it's fun to fight that way. And again, it's part of that scoundrel fantasy that works. There is, of course, also your blaster, which has two different sort of modes. It has the normal red bolts, which are lethal to humans. And then it's got these, you can press a button and it will switch to the blue bolts, which are used against droids mostly. It'll be used against energy shields. And it's also used to power up certain nodes that you might find. So again, you find a control panel, it's powered down. Oh, here's the battery. You shoot it 3 times with your ion blaster, and boom, off it goes, and you can continue on, right? So combat though feels very competent. You know, it's not doing anything too flashy. It's very cover-based, which is not at all surprising because this is from UB Massive, the studio that made The Division. And I definitely felt quite a bit of The Division's combat coming through in this game, in the level design and the way that it would set up its arenas with very obvious cover points. There is a slide button that when you're running, you press B and you'll kind of slide in behind cover very easily. There's also a roll, and at least a few of the combat encounters that I faced, I had to sort of like make my way from cover point to cover point. Again, very, very The Division. But other than that, it's just, yeah, shooting guys with your blasters and throwing grenades. And, you know, they'll push you out of cover though quite a bit. They throw grenades back at you and that will force you out of cover, again, like The Division, like most third-person shooters really. But it was all very competent and I had a good time playing it. Again, not remarkable, don't expect anything crazy, but expect something to be, you know, expect something fun, right?
I'm too smart to
All
die.
troopers, there is an intruder moving through the station.
So that heist mission basically culminated in me collecting an artifact. Then I needed to haul ass to get out of this place that I stole it. I then needed to make my way through this little town and deliver it to an NPC. And once I'd done that, then they were going to help me. And that's kind of where the demo ended, right? So that was demo 2, and I think that was the best overall slice for, you know, what this game is going to feel like to play moment to moment. The third demo that I played was for the, you know, in-space flight stuff, right? You take off with your ship, you are being chased by TIE fighters, you take them out to a big sort of debris field, you're flying into the bigger structures and you're avoiding the smaller bits of debris that are sort of flinging around. It is fine, I would say. I think this is the least impressive. This was definitely the least impressive part of the demo. We've had some really fantastic, you know, Star Wars space games in the past, for sure. Like, you know, like that one from EA Motive, for example, which is really great, and a whole bunch of others. This is just kind of very functional. The flight mechanics don't feel particularly deep. That small encounter that I experienced, there wasn't much to it. You know, TIE fighters didn't really put up much of a fight. It was very basic. Not bad by any means, but again, not exceptional. Like no one's gonna be buying this game for the space flight side of it. I'll just put it that way. It almost feels like it's a pacing mechanism that takes you to sort of break up the rest of the game being on the ground, okay? But there was a really cool sequence where you just kind of drive up to a planet, hit a button, and then the landing sequence initiates, where you just go through the atmosphere, clouds kind of obscure your view, and all of a sudden, you know, the city is beneath you. And it was a nice transition that felt really cool. And then, you know, you land there and you get out of your ship and all of a sudden you're in town. It looked incredible. It was a masked loading screen, don't get me wrong. This isn't No Man's Sky. It's not seamless in the way that it does it, but it's a nice loading screen. So, you know, it was cool. But really the most impressive part of all 3 demos that I experienced was after I landed with my ship and I was now in this new town and I kind of just got to walk around and explore it. And this is where those Star Wars vibes really came through. The visual fidelity here was incredible. There were so many people walking around. They all had so many different like barks, you know, audio barks, and they all sounded very authentic. Yeah, it was just, there were like mini games there, right? I could bet on the horses from like Canto Bight, and I could, you know, just randomly bet and I could sit there and watch a horse race. There was a card game, Sabak, I think it's called, and I didn't really know the rules of it, so I lost, but I played a few rounds of that. There were some arcade games in there, which were also really fun. So obviously the game wants you just to sort of chill out in these spaces, and it's nice to do that because they really do feel very authentic and very lived in, and yeah, that was a real highlight for me. I loved what they're doing with that. And that apparently is the least of it when it comes to how open world this experience promises to be. They were very clear with me that this demo, or these 3 demos that I experienced, were very linear, far more linear than what the rest of the game promises to be. And I believe that in the sense that this is Ubisoft. And if there's one thing that Ubisoft knows how to make, it's an open world game, like almost to a fault, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that opens up. The other thing I would say, and this is my main point of concern, is that narrative-wise, Ubisoft games are very often not good. I think it's too early to say whether or not this will be good, but I really liked what I what I saw of the narrative and the voice work and how authentic that felt. Like, it really felt like it got Star Wars. The main character felt like she spoke like the scoundrel you'd expect, and the aliens you were interacting with, the crime bosses and everybody else, the droids that you met, everyone just kind of felt like, oh yeah, that's how it should be. You know what I mean? None of it stood out to me as like tin-eared, like it didn't really get what Star Wars was. It felt good, it sounded good, and I was impressed by that. And I'm finding myself far more optimistic about this game's narrative than I was at the start, because as I said, when it comes to Ubisoft and their writing, I always have concerns. So anyway, I really enjoyed this. I did. I think if you set your expectations at the right level, you're very likely to enjoy yourself as well. I mean, obviously, full review pending, but like, Star Wars, Jedi Survivor, and Jedi Fallen Order are really obvious, useful touch points, as I said earlier, in that they're not remarkable games, but they're just well-made Star Wars that deliver on a certain fantasy very capably, through both their grasp of Star Wars and their grasp of the gameplay fundamentals that they're looking to deliver. I feel, based on my time with Star Wars Outlaws, that this is in that same ballpark, right? It's landing in that same space. And that is no small feat, because the Respawn Star Wars games were great. And if this can be equally great, then, you know, UB Massive will have made a great Star Wars game. So yeah, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below and I'll respond. But yeah, that's all I got for you. I'll see you later, bye.
Alright Australians, this next part's for you. For a few years now here on the channel, we've been partnering with GeForce Now powered by Cloud GG because it provides the most affordable path into PC gaming on high-end hardware. What I mean by that is PC hardware is not cheap in terms of upfront costs, maintenance and upgrades. GeForce Now powered by Cloud GG is a cloud gaming service that lets you use high-end PC hardware in the cloud while paying a fraction of the cost that you would have to spend if you bought that hardware up front. Plus, they take care of the upgrades. Case in point, just this past month, GeForce Now powered by Cloud GG upgraded their hardware behind their highest membership tier. That tier was running NVIDIA RTX 3080 GPUs. Still great, plenty powerful, no problems there. But now the ultimate tier is powered by RTX 4080 GPUs, the next generation of GPU that provides even more power so you can max those settings like never before. And best of all, this ultimate tier replaced the ultra tier at the exact same price. Could there be a better demonstration of the benefits of this technology? If you were to upgrade from a 3080 to a 4080, you'd have to buy that GPU outright, which is like $1,500 to $2,000. Here, you just log into your account and all of a sudden, you have the latest generation GPU without having to spend anything extra. That is wild. As for what that 4080 powered Ultimate tier enables, it's a lot. It does mean that you can max out settings on the majority of games that you play because very few games can put a 4080 through its paces. It does mean support for up to 120 FPS when playing on select Samsung or LG TVs. Since these TVs have support for a 120Hz refresh rate, it means support for up to 240 FPS if you're playing at 1080p, fantastic for competitive experiences like Overwatch or Counter-Strike. It does mean you can turn on RTX-enabled ray-traced effects, like ray-traced shadows, lighting, reflections, and more, and it also provides support for ultra-wide monitors, which is great if you're playing immersive open-world games or stuff like F1 or Flight Sim. All of what I've described is possible on basically any device, be it a smart TV, a tablet, an old computer, or even Apple devices, including iPhone, iPads, and Macs. Almost anything with a screen can suddenly become a top-end gaming PC thanks to GeForce Now powered by Cloud GG. There is a free trial available all the time, allowing you to test this for yourself, and for less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can get a full month of the basic tier membership, giving you the ability to stream games on the fly with ease. If you find yourself loving it and using it often, you may want to check out that Ultimate tier, giving you next-gen features like ray tracing, 120 FPS on select TVs, and ultra-wide support for PC monitors. PC gaming is, I think, the best way to go about it, but the cost of entry is intimidating, and you have to worry about all the upgrades and whatever else. Don't worry about any of that. If you just want to get into PC gaming without any of that cost or hassle, then GeForce Now is absolutely the way to do it, allowing you to play hundreds of PC games with ease. You can try it for free by clicking the link below. Thanks GeForce Now powered by Cloud GG for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.